There were disasters to mop up. The radios were jammed with distress calls. They dropped us off at Santa Monica Pier with towels around our shoulders and water bottles that said, "I'm a junior Coast Guard," and sped off to save more people. Our clothes were sopping wet, even mine. When the Coast Guard boat had appeared, I'd silently prayed they wouldn't pick me up out of the water and find me perfectly dry, which might have raised some eyebrows, so I willed myself to get soaked. Sure enough, my usual waterproof magic had abandoned me. I was also barefoot because I'd given my shoes to Grover. Better the Coast Guard wonder why one of us was barefoot than wonder why one of us had hooves. After reaching land, we stumbled down the beach, watching the city burn against the beautiful sunrise. I felt as if I'd just come back from the dead, which I had. My backpack was heavy with Zeus's master bolt. My heart was even heavier from seeing my mother. "I don't believe it," Annabeth said. "We went through all that way." "It was a trick," I said. "A strategy worthy of Athena." "Hey," she warned. "You get it, don't you?" She dropped her eyes, her anger fading. "Yeah, I get it." "Well, I don't," Grover complained. "Why would somebody—" "Percy," Annabeth said. "I'm sorry to hear about your mother. I'm so sorry." I pretended not to hear her. I talked as if I was going to start crying like a little kid. "The prophecy was right," I said. "You should go west and face the god that has turned." But it wasn't Hades. Hades didn't want war among the big three. Someone else pulled off the theft. Someone stole Zeus's master bolt and Poseidon's, in Hades' helm and framed me because I'm Poseidon's kid. Poseidon will get blamed by both sides. By sundown today there will be a three-way war, and I'll have caused it. Grover shook his head mystified. But who would be that sneaky? Who would want that war that bad? I stopped my tracks looking down at the beach. Gee, let me think. There he was waiting for us in his black leather duster and his sunglasses and an aluminum baseball cap propped on his shoulder. His motorcycle rumbled beside its headlight, turning the red sand. "Hey, kid," Ares said, seeming genuinely pleased to see me. "You were supposed to die." "You tricked me," I said. "You stole the helm and the master bolt." Ares grinned. "Well, now, I didn't steal them personally. Gods taking each other's symbol of power, that's a big no-no. But you're the only hero in the world who can run errands." "Who did you use, Clarice?" "She was the one at the winter solstice. The idea seemed to amuse him." "Doesn't matter. The point is, kids, you're impeding the war effort, so you've got to die in the underworld. Then old Seaweed will be mad at Hades for killing you. Of course, Breath will have Zeus's master bolt, and Zeus will be mad at him, and Hades is still looking for this." From his pocket, he took out a ski cap, the kind of bank robbers wear, placed it between the handlebars of his bike. Immediately, the cap transformed into an elaborate bronze war helmet. "The helm of darkness," Grover gasped. "Exactly," Ares said. "Now, where was I? Oh, yeah, Hades will be mad at both Zeus and Poseidon because he doesn't know who took this. Pretty soon, we got a nice little three-way fight slugfest going." "But they're your family," Annabeth protested. Ares shrugged. "Best kind of war. Always the bloodiest. Nothing like watching your relatives fight, I always say." "You gave me the backpack in Denver," I said. "The master bolt was in there the whole time." "Yes and no," Ares said. "It's probably too complicated for you little mortal brain to follow, but the backpack is the master bolt sheath. Just morphed it a bit. The bolt is connected to it, sort of like that sword you got, kid. It always returns to your pocket, right?" I wasn't sure how Ares knew about that, but I guess a god of war had to make it his business to know all the weapons. "Anyways," Ares continued, "I tinkered with the magic a bit, so the bolt would return to its sheath once you reach the underworld. You got close to Hades. Bingo, you got mail. If you died along the way, no loss. I stole the weapon." "But why not just keep the master bolt for yourself?" I said. "Why send it to Hades?" Ares got a twitch in his jaw. For a moment, it was almost as if he was listening to another voice deep inside his head. "Why, I didn't, yeah, with that kind of firepower." He held the trance for a second, 2 seconds. I exchanged nervous looks with Annabeth. Ares' face cleared. "I didn't want the trouble. Better to have you caught red-handed than holding the thing." "You're lying," I said. "Sending the bolt to the underworld wasn't your idea, was it?" "Of course it was." Smoke drifted up his sunglasses as if they were about to catch fire. "You didn't order the theft, I guess. Someone else sent a hero to steal the 2 items. Then when Zeus sent you to hunt them down, you caught the thief, but you didn't turn him over to Zeus. Something convinced you to let him go. You kept the items until another could come along and complete the delivery. That thing in the pit is ordering you around. I am the god of the war. I take orders from no one. I have dreams. I hesitated. Who said anything about dreams? Ares looks agitated, but he tried to cover it up with a smirk. Let's get back to the problem at hand, kid. You're alive. I can't have you taking that bolt to Olympus. You might get those hard-headed idiots to listen to you. So I've got to kill you. Nothing personal. He snapped his fingers as sand exploded at his feet and charged a wild boar, even larger and uglier than the one whose head hung above the door at Camp 7 at Camp Half-Blood. The beast pawed the sand, glaring at me with its beady eyes, lowering razor-sharp tusks, and waited for the command to sit still. I stepped into the surf. Fight me yourself, Ares. He laughed, but I only heard a little edge of his laughter and uneasiness. You've only got one talent, kid. You're running away. You ran from the Chimera. You ran from the underworld. You don't have what it takes. Scared? In your adolescent dreams. But his sunglasses were starting to melt from the heat of his eyes. No direct involvement. Sorry, kid. You're not at my level. Annabeth said, Percy, run. The giant boar charged, but I was done running from monsters, or Hades, or Ares, or anyone else. As the boar rushed me, I uncapped my sword and sidestepped. Riptide appeared in my hands. I slashed. The boar's severed right tusk fell at my feet, while the disoriented animal charged into the sea. I shouted, Wave! Immediately, a wave surged from nowhere and engulfed the boar, wrapping it up like a blanket. The beast squealed in terror. Then it was gone, swallowed by the sea. I turned back to Ares. Are you going to fight me now? I asked, or are you going to hide behind another little pet pig? Ares' face was purple with rage. Watch it, kid. I could turn you into a cockroach, I said, or a tapeworm? Yeah, I'm sure. That'd save you from getting your godly hide whipped, wouldn't it? Flames danced along the top of his glasses. Oh, man, you're really asking to be smashed into a grease spot. If I lose, turn me into anything you want. Take the bolt. If I win, the helm and the bolt are mine, and you have to go away. Ares sneered. He swung the baseball bat off his shoulder. How would you like to get smashed? Classic or modern? I showed him my sword. That's cool, dead boy, he said. Classic it is. The baseball bat changed into a huge two-handed sword. The hilt was a large silver skull with rubies in its mouth. Percy, Annabeth said, don't do this. He's a god. He's a coward, I told her. She swallowed. Wear this at least for luck. She took off her necklace with 5 years' worth of camp beads and the ring from her father tied around my neck. Reconciliation, she said. Athena and Poseidon together. My face felt a little warm, but I managed to smile. Thanks. Take this, Grover said. He handed me a flattened tin can he'd been saving in his pocket for 1,000 miles. The satires stand behind you. Grover, I don't know what to say. He patted me on the shoulder. I stuffed the tin can in his back pocket. You all done saying goodbye? Ares came toward me, his black leather duster trailing behind him and his sword glinting like fire in the sunrise. I've been fighting for eternity, kid. My strength is unlimited and I cannot die. What have you got? A smaller ego, I thought, but I said nothing. I kept my feet in the surf, looking back to the water to my ankles. I thought back to what Annabeth said about the Denver diner so long ago. Ares has strength. That's all he has. Even strength has to bow to wisdom sometimes. He cleaved downward at my head, but it wasn't there. My body thought for me. The water seemed to push into the air, and I catapulted over him, splashing as I came down. But Ares was just as quick. He twisted at the strike that should have caught him directly in the spine, was deflected off the end of his sword hilt. He grinned. Not bad, not bad. He slashed again, and I was forced to jump into the dry land. I tried to sidestep to get back into the water, but Ares seemed to know what I wanted. He outmaneuvered me, pressing so hard I had to pull all my concentration on getting sliced into pieces. I kept backing away from the surf. I couldn't find any openings to attack. His sword had a reach several feet longer than Ankylusma's. Getting close, Luke had told me once, back in our sword class. You've got a shorter blade. Getting close. I stepped inside with a thrust, but Ares was waiting for me. He knocked my blade out of my hands and kicked me in the chest. I went airborne 20-30 feet. I would have broken my back if I hadn't crashed into the soft sand of the dune. Percy, Annabeth yelled, Cops! I was seeing double. My chest felt like I'd been hit with a battering ram. I managed to get to my feet. I couldn't stay away from Ares, for fear he'd slice me in half. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw red flashing lights on the shoreline boulevard. Car doors were slamming. "There, officer," yelled somebody. "See?" A gruff cop voice. "Looks like the kid on TV." "What the heck?" "That guy's armed," another cop called. "Call for backup." I rolled to one side. An Ares blade slashed the sand. I ran for my sword, scooped it up, and launched a swipe at Ares' face, only to find the blade deflected again. Ares seemed to know exactly what I was going to do the moment before I did it. I stepped back into the surf, forcing him to follow. "Admit it, kid. You've got no hope. I'm just toying with you." My senses were working overtime. I now understood what Annabeth had said about ADHD keeping you alive in battle. I was wide awake, noticing every little detail. I could see where Ares was tensing. I could tell which way he would strike. At the same time, I was aware of Annabeth and Grover 30 feet to my left. I saw a second cop car pulling up, siren wailing. Spectators, people who had been wandering off the streets because of the earthquake, were starting to gather. Among the crowd, I saw a few who were walking the strange trotting gait of disgusted satyrs. There were shimmering forms of spirits, too, as if the dead had risen from Hades to watch the battle. I had the flap of leathery wings circling somewhere above. More sirens. I stepped further into the water, but Ares was fast. The tip of his blade ripped my sleeve and grazed my forearm. A police voice on the megaphone said, "Drop the guns. Set them on the ground now." Guns? I looked at Ares' weapon. It seemed to be flickering. Sometimes it looked like a shotgun, sometimes a two-handed sword. I didn't know what the humans were seeing in my hands. I was pretty sure it wouldn't make them like me. Ares turned to glare at the spectators, which gave me a moment to breathe. There were 5 police cars now, and a line of officers crouching behind them, pistols trained on us. "This is a private matter," Ares bellowed. "Be gone." He swept his hand and a wall of red flames rolled across the patrol cars. The police barely had time to dive for cover before their vehicles exploded. The crowd behind them scattered, screaming. Ares roared with laughter. "Now, little heroes, add you to the barbecue." He slashed. I deflected his blade. I got close enough to strike. Tried to fake him out with a feint, but my blow was knocked aside. The waves were hitting me in the back now. Ares was up to his thighs, wading in after me. I felt the rhythm of the sea, the waves growing larger, and the tide rolled in. And then suddenly I had an idea. Little waves, I thought. The water behind me seemed to recede. I was holding back the tide by the force of will, but the tension was like a building, like carbonation behind a cork. Ares came toward, grinning confidently. I lowered my blade as if I were too exhausted to go on. "Wait for it," I told the sea. The pressure now was almost lifting me off my feet. Ares raised his sword and released the tide and jumped, rocketing straight towards Ares on a wave. A 6-foot wall of water smashed him full in the face, leaving him cursing and sputtering with a mouthful of seaweed. I landed behind him with a splash and feinted towards his head as I'd done before. He turned in time to raise his sword, but this time he was disoriented. He didn't anticipate the trick. I changed to the direction, lunged to the side, and stabbed Riptide straight down into the water, sending the point through the god's heel. The roar that followed made Hades' earthquake look like a minor event. The very sea was blasted back from Ares, leaving a wet circle of sand 50 feet wide. Ichor, the golden blood of the gods, flowed from a gash in the war god's boot. The expression on his face was beyond hatred. It was pain, shock, complete disbelief that he'd been wounded. He limped toward me, muttering ancient Greek curses. Something stopped him. It was as if a cloud from the sun, but worse. Light faded. Sound and color drained away. A cold, heavy presence passed over the beach, slowing time, dropping the temperature to freezing, and making me feel like life was hopeless. Fighting was useless. The darkness lifted. Ares looked stunned. Police cars were burning behind us. The crowd of spectators had fled. Annabeth and Grover stood on the beach in shock, watching the water flood back around Ares' feet, the glowing golden ichor dissipating in the tide. Ares lowered his sword. "You have made an enemy, godling," he told me. "You have sealed your fate. Every time you raise your blade in battle, every time you hope for success, you will feel my curse. Beware, Percy Jackson, beware." His body began to glow. "Percy," Annabeth said, "don't watch." I turned away. The god Ares revealed his true immortal form. I somehow knew that if I looked, I would disintegrate into ashes. The light died. I looked back. Ares was gone. The tide rolled out to reveal Hades' bronze helm of darkness. I picked picked it up and walked towards my friends. But before I got there, I heard the flapping of leathery wings. 3 evil-looking grandmothers with lace hats and fiery whips drifted down the sky and landed in front of me. The middle fury was the one who had been Mrs. Dodds and stepped forward. Her fang was bared, but for once she didn't look that threatening. She looked more disappointed, as if she'd been planning to have me for supper, but had decided I might give her indigestion. "You saw the whole thing," she hissed, "so it truly wasn't you?" I tossed her the helmet, which she caught in surprise. "Return that to Lord Hades," I said. "Tell him the truth. Tell him to call off the war." She hesitated, then ran a forked tongue over her green leather lips. "Live well, Percy Jackson. Become a true hero, because if you do not, if you ever come into my clutches again—" She cackled, savoring the idea, and then her sisters rose on their bat wings, fluttered into smoke-filled sky, and disappeared. I joined Grover and Annabeth, who were staring at me in amazement. "Percy," Grover said. "That was so incredibly—" "Terrifying," said Annabeth. "Cool," Grover corrected. I didn't feel terrified. I didn't feel cool. I was tired and sore and completely drained of energy. "Did you guys feel that, whatever it was?" I asked. They both nodded uneasily. "That must have been the Furies overhead," Grover said, but I wasn't so sure. Something had stopped Ares from killing me, and whatever could do that was a lot stronger than the Furies. I looked at Annabeth and kept an understanding passed between us. I knew now that what was in the pit that had spoken the entrance of Tartarus. I reclaimed my backpack from Grover and looked inside. The Master Bolt was still there, such a small thing to almost cause World War III. "We have to get back to New York," I said, "by tonight." "That's impossible," Annabeth said, "unless we fly." I agreed. She stared at me. "Fly like in an airplane, which you were warned never to do, lest Zeus strike you out of the sky, and carrying a weapon that has more destructive power than a nuclear bomb?" "Yeah," I said, "pretty much exactly like that. Come on."